right, what's up, Pats fans? We're back here. Episode, the bit's getting old. Maybe you know why the bit's getting old? Probably because we keep losing, and I'm just not in the
14,
mood.
man. 14 today.
It's 14 today.
Right, we're at 14, episode 14. Sorry if you hear in the background noise. If you hear people getting called on planes, I'm in an airport right now. We're kind of a few of us are on remote locations, it looks like, but we're back better than ever. To their point, episode 14. Pat's Tailgate Party podcast. And so,
Mike, it looks like it's 14 degrees there. Is that right?
It is. Well, I'm currently in Des Moines, Iowa, the heartland of the United States. And I think the high today, last I looked, it was 29 when I got out of my rental car. A little bit snowy outside. So luckily I'm in the warm confines of Des Moines International Airport. So Michael Lakis here. My handle on BSJ, Boston Sports Journal. By the way, if you haven't checked out Boston Sports Journal, you got to do it. Go on. Greg Bedard puts on the best Patriots product you can find. BostonSportsJournal.com is Pat Sox Seltz Brews. So we'll go around the horn here and let everybody introduce themselves. You probably know the names and the faces by now. So we'll go to my right, Andrew Lakis, my brother. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Happy holidays to everybody. Winter coats on BSJ. I was, trying to put some chats in there that weren't, catastrophic or melodramatic the other night after Sunday's game, because trying to balance Mike out a little bit in the thread. But I'll
Mike
kick
Davis?
it over
You talking about Mike Davis or me? Oh,
no,
me. Okay,
Michael Lakis. I'm talking about Pat Sox Seltz.
I'm just kidding.
It looked like he was having a crisis meltdown after the Bills game. But I'll pass it over to Mike Davis. How are you, Mike?
Yeah, fantastic as always. This is Mike from Stoneham on BSJ, and I am coming to you from someplace very warm and tropical.
Where? I mean, are you up there? Is that Lowell? Are you in Lowell right now? It's the high. I mean, where are you today?
I am on a warm tropical island right now.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, congratulations. Everyone here is jealous of that. All right, we'll pass it over to Doug Lakis, a.k.a. Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians, yeah, that looks good there. Doug Lakis, D. Lakis on Boston Sports Journal. I hope you guys are doing well. And Mike, I'm envious of the palm trees swaying in the back, buddy.
Look at that, man. Hey, you got to change your handle on BSJ, right? You got to go to Coach.
Yeah, I know. I got to go in and do that. That's
Coach.
Right.
Got to get it done. And then lastly, special guest, not a guest anymore. He's a staple now. Bill Donovan. Regular. Bill, how are you?
Good. How's everybody doing? Happy holidays to everybody. Hope everybody has a great new year. And my handle on BSJ is Bill D1954. Read it daily. Love it.
That's awesome. Again, check out Boston Sports Journal. Best Pats coverage you can find. And we want more people to join this party, right? So if you can join, just we're here for that. Send us an email at patstailgateparty@gmail.com. patstailgateparty@gmail.com. All right, let's kick into it. Let's talk about what happened on Sunday. Andrew, you were right. I was riding the emotional roller coaster, if you will, on Sunday night. And the crazy part was I was sitting at my grandmother-in-law's house watching in the peaceful confines with my wife. And after that game, Dad, I think you and Andrew both got a phone call from me because I had to walk around the neighborhood a little bit because I wasn't going to say the words in front of Sweet Tutu, which is what we call her. She didn't need to hear any of that. So I had to get out of that house. But boy, what a frustrating game. I mean, just after what happened with the Colts game, they looked like they came out flat again. Flat got dominated in the first half and then tried to come back in the second half. But I'm going to start here and then we'll pass it around. I don't know what they're doing on defense right now. And I said this on Boston Sports Journal. I contrasted what I saw in that game to what I saw in the Chiefs game later on in the day. And in the Pats game, I saw no pass rush, real tentative contained defense that didn't work, wide open receivers running all over the place. And then in the Chiefs game, I saw confident, tight man coverage defense, nonstop pressure on Roethlisberger and a confident team. And it was infuriating to me. So I don't know what the game plan was, but it clearly didn't work. But that was my key takeaway. What about you guys?
Well, I'll tell you, I listened to Belichick on Monday morning, and he agreed with you that he didn't like coaching at all, especially on defense. And it sounded to me like he wasn't talking about himself. it sounded like he's been giving his defensive coaches a little bit too much rope, and it's over. He's going to pull it right back in, and he's going to tighten up the ship himself. I don't know if any of y'all have heard that, but wow, he was very, very direct about, we're going to change this and we're going to clean this up. And it sounded like he's just as sick as you are, Mike.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I'm happy that that's the case, Mike. Right? Like look what happened when supposedly he pulled the reins in earlier in the season after the 2-4 start. I hope we get the same thing moving forward. Andrew, Dad, Bill, what do you guys think? I mean, there's some stuff. A lot of people were crushing Mac Jones, by the way, and I know he didn't have a great game, but Andrew, you had a strong take on
Mac
that.
Jones' fault.
Yeah, come on. I mean, Andrew, what was you gave me a take on that on Sunday? The people talking about Mac Jones. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, these boobs get on the chat. They just start dropping. They're mad at everybody, and it's just like, get out of here. I mean, the defense was terrible. The Bills still haven't punted yet. They still haven't punted yet. So unless Mac Jones is I can't name a single rookie quarterback ever that would have won against another top divisional team when the other team doesn't punt. You can't find me a single example in history. Was he good? No. Bedard had him rated 1 out of 5. I think that's pretty accurate. He missed a lot of throws. His mechanics are off. But I didn't think, I think what I put down, what my comment in the chat and after giving it some thought Sunday night was just that, the longer term future is still really bright. Like the draft class from this year, Mac, the free agents. I mean, you can see the teams gelling. They're just not there yet. They're not. It's not complementary, right? So Bill Belichick's approach is usually to play less aggressive on defense, let the other team make mistakes, don't give up the big play. Well, the only way you can do that is give a quarterback who's ready to put pressure on the other team's defense like Tom Brady did for so long, and Mac's just not there yet. And so the margin for error is really thin. And, what I've felt the last 2 games, I'm irritated that they haven't come out more focused. Like as a fan, that's pretty frustrating because I'm ready and amped up. But I think more cerebrally, I'd just say all the pieces don't fit yet. Like they can't go execute a top to bottom 3-phase game plan because something doesn't go as planned. And Bill's approach has always been really methodical. Like everything has to go right. And it's a very analytical approach. And like, I'm glad to hear Mike Davis that he may be taking the reins back. I hope that he realizes that maybe his best bet over the next 6 weeks is to be really aggressive on defense. And it could lead to them being blown out at some point. But I think it also maybe gives them a better chance to win because I don't think they're going to be able to balance it out.
Well, Coach was saying before everybody else jumped on that part of the problem is the guys who know what they're supposed to be doing probably don't have enough in the tank anymore. So Coach, I'll let you pick up because you were talking about that before.
Well, I mean, it's really a hard thing to watch because as poorly as they played defensively, in the middle of the fourth quarter, they're 1 play away from being ahead. And it's to me, and I've always gone by this old adage, your best players have to make plays in big situations. Unfortunately, they got a couple of guys who have made huge plays over the course of time for the Patriots who can't make those plays anymore. That being Hightower, McCourty, those guys. But unfortunately, the younger guy, I mean, Jackson has a pick 6 in his hands, and the game has turned in a minute and a half, and all of a sudden, the whole dynamic changes. Well, that's not what happened. So but they just, and I said this to Mike before the game, but Mike Davis before we got on, I'm not as troubled by not making a play here or play there as I am. Once again, the pre-snap penalties, the mental errors, the things that happened in the first 6 weeks that are now all of a sudden showing themselves in the last 2 weeks. And cut a couple of those out and you win in the game. I mean, that's how close they are. And like to Andrew's point, everything has to go perfect, right? Well, it's not going perfect, but it's not real far. It's not real far off, but it's just far enough off that when they need a stop on 3rd and 7 I mean, when it's 4th and 7 and the Bills are not going to go run a play, we go offside. I mean, it's just infuriating stuff, and it's just, it's frustrating. I mean,
I just think that next year. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I want to get to Bill too and get his thoughts. I'm going to piggyback off what Dad was just saying. So there's a couple things. So J.C. Jackson drops that pick, and I think I said this to Andrew and Dad, and I said I knew in that moment the game was over because the margin of error on this team is so thin that they're not talented enough right now. And to your point, Andrew, gelling enough to where you can overcome that type of mistake. Like you have to catch that pass because the margin of error is so thin. The other thing is this is a team, and it's a good thing in some respects that it seems like they're in every game other than the Saints game where they got dominated really, but they don't dominate anybody. I watch the Cowboys, I watch the Chiefs, I watch these other teams that can dominate teams, right? Look what the Cowboys did to the Washington on Sunday night. The Pats, they don't really do that very much. They did it to some really injured teams early in the year, but it feels like every game's tight. Every game has a thin margin of error. And if they're not going to make those plays, it can be really frustrating. The last thing I'll say, and you just brought it up, I had a feeling every time it was 3rd and 10 or 4th and long in that game that we were literally going to get somebody running wide open 3 yards before the chains, and that they were going to go easily, get an easy first down, and it happened throughout the game. I also don't understand what they're trained. Did you guys see in the first drive of the game? I think Singletary caught a pass on the edge, and Duggar, instead of pushing him out of bounds for a 2-3 yard gain, holds on to him, essentially rides him like a pony 10 more yards down the field. And I've seen that before with this team, and I don't understand if it's tackling or technique, or I don't understand it.
Not to mention he ran over Hightower at the end of the run.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is? I don't understand at all. Bill, what do you think, man? What were your takeaways from the game?
With the defense over the last 2 games, I think it's defensive line and secondary. So in the last game against the Bills, Judon looks like he's in slow motion. He looks like he runs like me. Okay. You haven't heard Guy's name in the last 2 games, and Godshaw all of a sudden is gone. And then the secondary, Gilmore's gone. Jones got hurt. So that takes 2/5 of your secondary away. And I think that's where the problems are lying now, because they're coming up against quality teams. This week's going to be interesting against Jacksonville to see if the defense bounces back, whether Belichick takes control or they're playing a lesser quality team. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. And I was swearing at that television all night.
That's great.
Well, I want to open it up for another thing that Andrew and I think, debated on Sunday. Again, we were probably both irritated about the game, but you've said it, Andrew, for a long time. Bedard said it for a long time. I think Josh Allen's better than you give him credit for. And I think Josh, it's not trash. Come on, man. He just owned them. Like literally, and maybe it was because the defense was so bad, but he blew him out last year, he blew him out this year. I think, Dad, you're with me on this, aren't you? About Allen being a good player?
I gotta tell you, and I'm a Buffalo Bill hater for sure. Allen made a couple of Mahomes type plays on Sunday. I'm just gonna tell you, and whether that's the Patriots scheme, whether it's this or that, the backhand flips when he's running towards the line of scrimmage, and the one ball that Van Noy was all over him and he dropped down to the side, threw it underhanded. He's pretty good. I don't know what else to say.
And he can run.
He's athletic. And I told you guys last week his legs were going to be a problem, and they were a problem. He rushed for 65 yards, not to mention he moved from side to side a bunch of times to give himself a throwing lane. So, you say what you want about the guy. He was key in that game on Sunday.
I didn't say he's bad. I said he's super talented. It's really funny. In our back and forth on Sunday afternoon, I think I said exactly what Greg wrote in his article this week, which is if Allen were what people think Allen is, that game would have been over by halftime. And I stand by that.
Fair enough.
Threw a pick six that J.C. Jackson dropped.
But
he almost handed the Patriots the game without any pressure in his face.
Shouldn't have been over by halftime because they dropped 2 touchdowns. Manuel Sanders dropped a touchdown that should have been a touchdown. And what's his name? The Kumarov guy dropped one too.
I'd say cool it on the Allen. I mean, sure. Do I think he's a talented quarterback? And, at this point, is he beating the Patriots? Absolutely. I mean, that defense was terrible on Sunday. And I think, Allen hasn't proven to me yet he's going to win a thing. I don't think Allen's going into KC and beating Mahomes.
Nope.
He ain't beating Brady if he ends up playing him in the Super Bowl. Allen's great for stats. He makes nice, look at me, underhand throws. Awesome. That's great.
One thing about Allen, he's like a Harlem
Globetrotter, man. He's great.
He's a big, strong kid, right? He's tough. He's quick.
Right.
I don't know. I just think especially Greg, man. I know Greg, avid listener of the show, obviously, Greg Bedard. I just think he just beats him up. I mean, to your point, he made a horrible throw. And if J.C. Jackson picks that off and he returns it and we win, I think Bills Mafia is crushing Allen all week.
Yeah, then he's still a bum, right?
Yeah, right. So
it's just a moot point.
Let me throw it.
We weren't good.
Mike Davis, let me throw this out to you guys. The Patriots not buying in on defense. You think that's a legit take by Bedard? Because I hope that's not the case.
I don't.
I almost wonder if it's more the coaching not getting it, not the players. First of all, it seems weird to be putting both Barmore and Judon as the spy, right, or as the robber. I didn't get that.
No.
Right? You're right. Judon looks slow, but if Judon's standing there in the backfield, in the defense backfield, waiting to see what the quarterback's doing, that's not his forte, right? His forte is to beat somebody and get into the backfield and disrupt, and that's Barmore too. So I really think it's really hard for those two guys to buy in on that. So, part of it's not. I don't buy that they were agreeing with the plan either.
But my point is, for 7 games they were pretty dominant on defense. Now all of a sudden in the last 2, the guys that came from outside in are not buying in. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, that feels like one of those anonymous sources type of things that a trade rumor that never happens.
But if you read Greg's article, what he's saying is the film he watched was so bad. In his decade plus covering the Patriots,
right.
He's never seen a team execute this poorly ever. He even talked about the 2009 team and the 2011 team that couldn't defend anyone. And he said, it tells me something's not right. There must be a buy-in problem or something going on. He didn't say there is. He didn't say he's got a source. He just suggested that when he watches the film, something's not right.
Well,
and that to me is super alarming.
Something wasn't right. You're right about that.
If coaches are trying to get Q, right, and they're trying to make guys do what they're not great at.
That's true.
Those guys aren't going to believe in it, right? If Barmore is a guy that just one gaps and he blows up the middle, and you got him trying to play robber, he's going to be like, I don't know what the hell to do, right? And the same thing, Judon he's an edge rusher. Yeah, he's been getting beat on the edge. So putting out a robber, I don't feel like that's something that's going to play to his strengths.
Well, speaking of that, speaking of reckless speculation, there's no sources here, but Judon went on the COVID list right after the game. He was breathing really hard on the sideline. I wouldn't be surprised if he had COVID playing. I don't know that, but he was on his knees at one point and couldn't get up. He gave up on a play, which Bedard talked about. He might have been sick in the game with Judon. And then the second thing is, and I want to talk about John Madden too today, because that's, rest in peace and one of the legends of the game that I think we should talk about. I know I've talked about playing Madden on here before, but I actually, when I saw your text, Mike, about dropping Barmore into robber, I didn't notice it in the game. But even Madden players know you don't drop the defensive tackle into the robber because they're not very fast and they can't cover anybody. So it's literally like a waste of time. Like you might as well, there's no point. Like you just got to push them forward and hope they can get to the quarterback. That's not what they're designed to do. I mean, it doesn't work, Yeah. So I think Bill, any last thoughts about the game before we move on and put a bow on it and throw it in the trash?
No, just besides 4 lot of words. I really think it's a lack of effort. I really do. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't disagree with you. In watching that, I thought they came out
a totally different team after Indy.
They were so soft.
Just totally different.
I agree.
Me too. They were so soft.
And I think, and the last thing I'll say is I think that, and I've talked about it with Andrew and Mike, I think that presents a bigger concern to me than some of the other X's and O's is they didn't come out in a game that meant pretty much the AFC East.
Oh, that was
They came out flat. They came out uninspired. And the Bills, on the other hand, came out totally the opposite. So
I'm going to transition us only because I'm watching the clock and I know Mike's going to jump on a plane. So this is the 14th episode. We've been doing who's your favorite player and that number. And I think we all can agree that Steve Grogan was a pretty valuable number 14 over the years. And this team does a little bit remind me of the pre-Parcells Patriots in those, the dumb penalties, the not coming up big. So this does sort of bring me back a little bit to those days, when I was a younger person with no gray hair and the Patriots were the laughing stock of the league. So
I had season tickets when Grogan was the quarterback for the Patriots. So I used to love the neck roll.
Awesome. any quarterback with a neck roll that runs a QB power, or
I tell you what,
they
man,
had to start that.
You slap a neck roll on Josh Allen, I'm on board. I'm in.
Well, didn't they? Dad, you tell me. I was gonna vote Brandon Cooks for the best 14, but I got overruled. But didn't
Grogan
I'm kidding. That had to be like the origination, other than like your single wings and your wing tees and your wishbones, but like just pro style offense. They ran him like a running back halftime.
He was a runner. He was a winner, to be honest. He was a
gamer.
He was a gamer. He played hurt. He played, and again, that was back in an era when they had a lot of the Hall of Fame Patriots play. Sam Cunningham and all those kinds of guys played back in those days. And to be honest with you, sometimes they weren't very good, but boy, it was fun to watch them play. Well, Bill, wouldn't you agree with that, Bill?
Absolutely. And Doug, I was a season ticket holder when Grogan was playing also. Awesome. They were great teams back then. They didn't go to many Super Bowls, but they were good. Maybe they lacked the Belichickian.
Well, speaking of Super Bowl they went to, was there anything in that game they could have done differently? Because I've watched that game. I didn't watch it live, but I've watched the tape, and I love that team.
Yeah, not play the Bears.
There, I'm asking you guys that saw it live. Was there anything different?
They played the Bears during the regular season of that year and only lost 20-7.
Well, that's what I'm at. 20-7
in Chicago, though.
Well, I think a more interesting thing is I've thought about this a lot, especially with our last 20 years and 6 championships. We always had great teams that would blow teams out in the regular season, and we never, ever had a blowout Super Bowl win. But if you look at the last 15 years, there's not really been a blowout Super Bowl game. Last year, Tampa gave
Seattle.
Yeah, that is true.
Denver,
that's the last one. But it doesn't happen very often anymore. I'm curious, for those of you that were watching more back then. I probably started watching the NFL seriously in the early 90s. Like, why is that? Like, what do you think it is?
Yeah, because go ahead, Dan.
Well, my take on it is that there was such a substantial difference in the AFC and the NFC. The NFC for a long, long time was a much more physical league, and they were much more dominant from that standpoint. Then, before that was the kind of the Raiders, and the Chiefs won early, and those kinds of thing. And the Steelers were dominant in the AFC, but they played that physical brand of football that was, prevalent in the NFC. But those teams were better. I mean, they were head and shoulders better against their opponent, and that's why they won those games like that. I think there's much more parity right now, and the teams are not, head and shoulders better than somebody. Just like the Cowboys when they beat the Bills to death in those Super Bowl and this, that. They were just so much better. I mean, they just were.
Well, I think the Bills deserve to be trolled for going to the Super Bowl 4 times and not winning any of them. Running into well, they lost to the wide right, Scott Norwood, and then the Reds, Washington ran over them with the Hogs and Joe Gibbs, and then they ran into the Cowboys running game, which is just, for all of our Bills fans listening, enjoy your AFC Championship victory. I still see an empty trophy case there in Orchard Park. Mike, Bill, anything on that? On those early Super, I think it's a great question that I don't know about because I'm with you. I started watching kind of in the early 90s. I didn't really get into football during that time.
I got to tell you, those 80s, you had the Cowboys, you had the Niners, who were an absolute train, and you had the Giants. Those were 3 great teams. I happened to go see the Niners back in the early 90s, going to the Superdome, and I was on a business trip. They were doing the 7-on-7 drills, and then the game started. They still looked like they were doing the 7-on-7 drills. They ran over the Saints, and it was like 28-0 in it seemed like 10 minutes. They were a house on both sides of the ball. Like nothing. You don't see teams that great nowadays.
That's awesome. They speaking of I saw this the other day, Dad. You bring up a lot of times you talk about Parsons. You hope that Bedard all said the Pats were possibly going to draft Parsons. I'm glad they drafted Matt because they need a quarterback. But I saw somebody compare his rookie year is being compared to LT right now about how good he is.
He's legit.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
No doubt.
Well, speaking of the Raiders, you brought up those Raiders championship teams. John Madden dies at 85. A few days ago, sad stuff. I got to be honest with you, I think a lot of people have said this. I don't know if there's been a bigger name, face, voice of the game ever. Like, I don't know if there's been anybody that's done anything as impactful to NFL football as him, from the coaching, obviously being the most winningest coach with the Raiders, and then obviously creating the video game, which we now know is the Madden video game, and spread like wildfire across the country, and then obviously his Hall of Fame broadcasting career. So I'll just throw that on the table and miss any great memories of Madden. I remember I watched a clip the other day when he called the first Super Bowl that the Pats won in 01, when he talked about they should take a knee and run out the clock, and then it gave them tingles that they actually went down the field with no timeouts and kicked the field goal to win. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I'll throw that out there and see if we have any great memories.
I thought he was the first color commentator that really told you something you didn't know about the game. They would, Summerall was great. He would tell you the play, they'd get out of the way, and he'd let Madden just share that wealth of experience. He would tell you a story. He would tell you about that player. He'd tell you something you just couldn't know unless he was calling that game. And that's, what more could you ask from color commentator, right? He put the color in color commentator. And I think he blazed the trail for so many new next generation color guys.
If you get the chance to YouTube John Madden on the Telestrator, do it, because that is unbelievable.
Did you see him where he drew the Gatorade, Dad? When he's talking about
he used to draw all sorts of stuff up there. But I think the man was so colorful, and Monday Night Football. People watch Monday Night Football to watch Madden. I mean, truth be told, and he coached such a colorful group of guys in Oakland that he was the perfect coach for that bunch. And
was Madden the coach at that page when they beat the Patriots on that holding call?
Oh, you mean the rough
not to go to the AFC Championship game?
The rough and the passer call. The rough and the passer call. It was the most invisible roughing the passer call of all time on Sugar Bear Hamilton. It sure was.
Was that on? Did he hit Kenny? Did he hit Kenny the Snake? Was that Kenny?
He hit Kenny the Snake. in a way that was just perfect. But it was roughing the passer.
Which back then is crazy. Now I can see.
Well, it's too bad they didn't have the officiating crew from this past Sunday. They'd have picked up the flag.
Don't
get
They
started.
picked up 2 flags
Don't get me
last
started.
I forgot
Don't
about that.
get me started. I know
Absolutely.
Mike was
not in the.
that.
I'm not debating you. It's not in the. It's in the rule book, man. There's no late hit in the NFL rule book. I looked this up for you guys. There's no such thing as a late hit, and you got to have forcible contact, and it's up for debate. And I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I'm telling you the rule book opens it up to interpretation, which is a problem. There's no consistency. It's a problem. I agree with you on that front, but I didn't see. I got to be honest with you. I don't think that was a flag. He was trying to hold him up. He should have probably avoided more contact, but he didn't slam him into the ground or anything. I don't know if I would have called that either.
He was in the white. His hands were on his back, and you threw a flag. That's a 15-yard penalty. The week before, Josh Allen, 2 weeks before, Allen's not even out of bounds yet. And Bryant runs him out of bounds, and it's a 15-yard penalty. No.
I think the problem is there's too much interpretation of the rule and not enough consistency in the calling of the rule. That's the problem.
Not to mention that what's his name, Myers, got held all the way across the field on an in route on a huge third down play. No flag.
Well, so I brought this up to you. Hold on, I brought this up, and Mike and Bill, you probably have a say on this. I said, and I'm not saying this is right, what I'm about to say, but I think it's reality, which is when you don't have Aguilar out there or someone who can separate, human nature, the officials see the talent of the receivers. For instance, let me give you an example. If I got Tyreek Hill out there and he's not separating, and I'm looking at why he's not separating and I'm seeing a holding call, it's much easier to call than when I have Jacoby Myers, who doesn't separate well anyway. And so literally there's a mental thing that happens in an official that goes, well, I mean, it might be holding, but he doesn't really separate anyway. I'm not telling you that's how you should call the penalty, but I think that happens in the mind of officials. Am I crazy?
I can see that. No, I can see that.
And that's what happens when you don't have speed. I think Aguilar not being out there the other day was a big deal. And I'm not a huge Aguilar guy, but you got to have somebody who can stretch the field, right? So, Mike, you look like you got a thought on that. Like you think I'm nuts or something. You're muted. You're muted over there.
Sorry, it's windy here. Maybe it's just karma, man, right? That 2001 team that held and grabbed and stalled the greatest show on turf. Maybe it's just what goes around comes around, and we're getting our comeuppance.
To your point, Mike.
But we got the Super Bowl to hold up, so maybe it's all worth it.
But to your point, and Andrew said this, I think 2 weeks ago, or Mike did, the Colts and now the Bills have played the Patriot receivers like the Patriots have played others in the past, and it's not being called. Well, so it's going to continue until it does.
They're also not scared of them. I'm going to play them that tight when I have playing guys like that can't move. I can't play the Chiefs that tight because they're going to run right by me, and I'm going to get called for holding. I agree. That's why you got to have speed and you got to have guys that can separate. By the way, real quick, to put a bow on the Madden thing, because I love that conversation. Unless there's any other great stories, and then we'll get on to Jacksonville and get out of here. But Bedard, if you haven't seen it, put a great tribute. I think it was kind of an underlining tribute in his latest article where he said the Patriots were calling from the Madden 96 playbook. I think he said they were calling the
I saw that.
The ace zone.
Pushing B fast as he can.
Yeah, Stevie Belichick was pushing B. I'm just telling you, don't sleep on that ace smash or ace flush or whatever that was in there. That was a great play in Madden 96.
One last Madden story, and I'll let it go. But back in the Immaculate Reception, I'm sure, Bill, you remember this, I'm sure. The ball hit the ground. Madden claimed the ball hit the ground in Pittsburgh. And he ran out to the official and said, now you're going to call this the way I saw it, right? It hit the ground. And the official turned to Madden and said, can you assure me I will get out of this stadium alive if I call it that way? End the story.
Don't remember that story, but I bet it's accurate.
I read that in Sports Illustrated.
God, I hate the Steelers. We haven't talked about the Steelers all year, but I hate them.
Oh, man. As it starts to rain on you when you're talking about the Steelers, Andrew.
We got a little sprinkle here.
Par for the course. All right, let's move to the Jags. I got to get on a flight. So Jacksonville, I mean, now we got work to do. So 2 weeks ago, we thought we were going to come in, we were going to win the AFC East. That's probably done. I don't see Buffalo losing. I would love for them to lose a game. I don't see it happening. So
You thought they were going to win the AFC East.
I actually picked the Bills last week. Just saying, throwing that out there. So now we got to make the playoffs. And you lose to Jacksonville, who, by the way, beat Buffalo.
If you lose to Jacksonville, just cancel Christmas. The whole thing's over.
Who's Jacksonville beat? They beat Buffalo. They beat Miami. Both teams have beat the Patriots. I'm not telling you it's going to happen, but Jacksonville, look, man, they're going to play tough. They're not going to
get that transitive property stuff out of here. Just go out and beat the Jaguars on Sunday, man. Come on. If you can't beat the Jaguars, the season's over. Like, I don't like
agree.
Yeah, it probably should be.
Actually, they should be able to run the ball. Mac will get back in rhythm.
Stevenson should be back. It sounds like he's practicing.
Stevenson should be back. I mean, I don't. Nothing's easy at this point, right? And you'd be an idiot to be like, oh, they're going to roll out on Sunday, and all of a sudden, all is solved. But I mean, this should be the kind of game where they can practice a few of the things they need to really work on. Like maybe you call some more aggressive defensive plays and you take a few chances. But I don't know.
Well, let me ask you guys this. We'll do some predictions because we got to run. So 16 is the spread. They're favored by 16 points at home. And
I ain't laying that.
It is 41.5 is the total. So let's go around the room with predictions about what we think is going to happen in the game and a score. 16 at home.
Well, you go broke laying double digits in the NFL. I'll tell you that right now.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So, Andrew, start with you. Go ahead. Let's go around.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think this team's good enough right now, and they're not executing well enough to make it easy. But I think I could see them. I think get back to running the ball, a little play action with Mac. I think the defense. We're going to know a lot about the defense on Sunday because they've been picked apart all week. Nobody's pulling any punches. I mean, to Bill's point earlier. I think the general consensus is that they lack effort right now. And anytime a good team and good players' effort is questioned, they usually come back with a better effort. I think I could see, what am I going to pick? I'll say 23-10.
23-10. Okay.
23-10. New England wins on Sunday.
Okay, great. All right, let's go quick here, Dad. Up to you.
I think the Patriots 28-16.
All right. Oh, 28-16. All right. And Bill, to you?
27-24, Pats.
Oh, tight game. Over in a tight game.
I think the defense is going to cave again.
All right.
That's all.
Little green apples.
So Bill's point, we're all cussing the TV.
That's right.
Late in the fourth quarter.
You better believe it. Well, Lawrence can move. He can run. He can run.
I know he can.
He's got a chooch, as they like to say, cannon. All right. Yep. Mike Davis.
24-21 Patriots. And I think it's going to be tight. And I do think they're going to go back to playing more fundamentally sound. And I'm hoping we're going to see a lot more execution. Keep it simple. Do what they can do. And I just don't think Jacksonville has the coaching right now.
All right. Fair enough.
That staff has been pulled apart.
Fair enough. I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna go blowout just because I like being different. I'm gonna go 31-0. Patriots win. And I think 31-0. I think Lawrence is going to look like Zach Wilson early in the year. And because Belichick does that to rookie quarterbacks. And Mike, if Belichick takes the reins over again, I think you'll see a different defense this week against a weak Jacksonville team. So I'm going to go 31-0. All right, guys. Any final thoughts? I got to jump on this plane.
No, enjoyed it, guys.
Yep.
As usual.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Safe travels, guys.
I'm glad you were back with us, Bill.
Yeah, man.
No trouble.
Thanks for coming in.
Hey, go Pats. Enjoy the game Sunday. Let's make the playoffs. And Happy New Year, everybody.